You're welcome and deserving. Have a great show.
Thank you. So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of MindShifters Radio. Today is Monday, January the 9th, 2023. And our call-in number is 563-999-3581. And press 1. And that puts you in queue to talk to us. And we would love to hear your comments and questions, because that makes this your show. A couple of things while we're waiting on Michael to dial in is that, let me flip over to this. I'm multitasking here. We got a comment on the website in regards to the Why Again book, and he says, quote, I would say that the book is a great read for anyone searching truth. It's at least a very helpful accessory to anyone's library. I really like how it's pointed out that the Aramaic understanding of forgiveness involves looking within. And I would even say that this is when heaven and earth can be found. Heaven on earth can be found. I found Roy Masters has been able to articulate these things with a depth that's amazing. I believe he followed your work to some extent. He's right that the Aramaic brings out life in Scripture more than more known translations that just don't shake a stick at. Roy is now passed away, but leaves behind plenty to seek out. There is a Skype meeting that a gentleman has been kind enough to allow some of the followers to use. I would like to openly invite you and your team and your friends to chat. I'd love to exchange ideas and connect people together. There's a monthly meeting. Details can be found here, and I've put this, what I just read, plus the link in the notes for today. There's the main U.S. site, but the UK side holds the meeting. Thank you, Sean and Kayla. And so I looked it up on the link that he gave us, and actually the next meeting is this coming Sunday, the 15th, and it's at 8 o'clock UK time, so that's 3 o'clock our time. And Michael and I plan on joining in with the meeting. So it's, if you have a Skype account, you know, it'll ask you to sign into Skype, but you don't have to. You can join as a guest, but if you're not logged in, I'm assuming that means you can't actually chat or whatever, that you're just listening. But anyway, I put those links on the website in today's notes so that you can tap into it, and I'll also put it in some other places on the website later. And so you can join us for that Skype meeting on Sunday afternoon, the 15th, at 3 o'clock Eastern Time. And that should be exciting. On their website, it says, we have monthly Skype meetings, which are open discussions where we share, spur each other on, raise questions regarding our inner journey to discovering our true self so that we can find the love, joy, kindness, patience, forgiveness, self-control, and faith that dwells inside us in order to live our life to our full potential. So you can just come in as a guest and listen. All you have to do is to click the link that I put in the notes. And if you sign in, then you can actually, if you sign into your Skype account, then you can actually participate in the conversation. So we invite you to consider putting that on your calendar for 3 o'clock Eastern Time on Sunday the 15th and joining us in that group. And Michael said he did know Roy Masters, and so the gentleman was correct in that, you know, they were along the same lines around the Aramaic. Also coming up this Thursday, so the 12th, is our book club. So that happens the 2nd and the 4th Thursday of every month. And so that's coming up this, and then on Saturday, the 14th, we have our Still Point Breathing. If you want to participate in that, if you go to our website, you can click on, up at the top where it says schedule, you can click and it will take you to, you'll see that there's the several items, but there's the Global Online Book Club, and that gives you the link where you can sign in and participate in that. And that one is by Zoom, and they're going over doing, I think this coming week they're doing worksheets, but they're going to start taking, I think, chapter at a time, going through the book again. And so you can participate in that. That's also free. And then the other thing, let me check and see. Yes, Michael's with us. But the other thing, before I turn it over to him, I want to share a testimonial. There's the a gentleman who has joined to do the Codependence Communication Self-Study Intensive. We've had several people that have participated in that, and he wrote back, and I asked him if I could use this as a testimonial, and he said absolutely. Says, I've been working on my top 3 challenges. Now, I get it, he's only been involved in this for about a week. And he says, I've been working on my top 3 challenges. I have a notebook and been writing a lot of MindShifters, word links, doing the reality wake-up sheets on the Heartland Aramaic Forgiveness app. The suggestions in each challenge I read and I sit with it and I practice. I'll rewatch the first 2 videos twice. I'll probably watch them again sometime soon. So far, my experience has been, now he's only watched two of the videos, and there's 48 videos. He says, so far my experience has been that the work is very, very effective and laser focused. I'm so amazed at how it accesses such deep layers of the mind so quickly and efficiently. My experience is that negative emotions easily discharge and are replaced with many positive experiences. Things are unfolding smoothly and sometimes with some intensity. But my thinking is changing. I was curious about the honors, and he's talking about, there's a section in the personal code evaluation, which that comes along with the codependence to interdependence and the communication self-study. You get 2 personal code evaluations. You take one at the beginning, one at the end, and it shows where your top challenges are, where you're going to get the most improvement to focus your work in just those 3 areas. And then there's a balance of the honors. That's honor for others, honor for self, and honor for truth. And he said, based on the results that he got on his, he said, I was curious about the honors aspect because I started to get a lot of insight into my relations with others and why I place myself first, blowing things out of proportion, which has been mainly with a house that I've been renovating and the many challenges that I have encountered in the past 3 years with that project. Good news is that it's all worked out and it was worth it. So that's just within the first week of doing the self-study intensive. So, even though it's not going on live with us, it is live with a group of people who were doing it with us. So it's intense watching, their process and listening to everybody's input. So it's very productive. And so thank you, David, for giving us that feedback. A couple other people that are doing it that Michael and I are going to see if they'll give us their testimonial about the self-study intensive as well and get that out there for you to listen to and to read. So at this time, I'm going to welcome Michael.
Thank you, dear heart, and welcome everybody. Glad you're here. And you probably heard Joe call into the show, and maybe Joe's out there. If he is, maybe he'll put up his hand and say hello. But I know that Joe has called in several times as he's been in the throes of some of the intensity that comes up in doing the codependence intensive self-study. And at one point he had shared with me that although he's in the business world and a lot going on in his life, there was a period there where it's like, the only thing I want to do is just get in and be part of watching those videos, get that discussion, get that processing work, and move my own dynamics. So Joe, if you're out there, maybe, push one, say hello, share a little bit more about what's going on for you as you're moving deeper and deeper into the intensive. And other than that, we're just kind of rock and roll here. Delighted that everybody's with us and that we get to play over and over and over again with these first century Aramaic tools and the dynamics of forgiveness. We're honored that you're here to be part of the process, and of course that we get to share this space with so many people is such a gift. Another interesting thing is developing, and I haven't even had a chance to talk with you about it, Jeannie, but I did get a phone call. There's a gentleman in Hawaii that's been doing this work for several years. His name is Mark, and Mark had called me this morning, or actually sent me a message via Facebook and asked me to contact him. He is a Steiner school teacher, and I guess Steiner has kind of become less active in the recent past, and they're looking at getting a group together to restart the teaching of the Steiner work and developing school teachers who want to promote Steiner's work. And so we started a conversation this morning about perhaps this August they might come to Heartland and utilize the Heartland facility, since we've closed for COVID reasons, that they might be interested in using Heartland to do a planning meeting to get their teacher training started. And he had shared with me that over the years that he's been doing that he has introduced and had other teachers who introduced the Steiner work to children through the Steiner educational system. And actually, she said that one particular teacher was really intensely doing worksheets with kids in schools, and he said there were just, phenomenal, like monumental, miraculous type breakthroughs with the kids doing worksheets. So pretty awesome. And it's interesting how many people come to the work of forgiveness and then move toward it as quickly and then just as quickly bounce away and disappear. And my take on that, and I'm saying this so that anyone who's new, you understand perhaps what's happening, is that when you actually start to, what the ancients called open the veil of the temple, which is what forgiveness does, when you start to really truly collapse the perceptual constructs of your mind that are based in hostility or fear, then you're introduced to an aspect of your mind which for most people is not Dr. Feelgood. It can be pretty intense. Hey, sweetheart. Aria Rain is with us today. Hi, sweetie. Come on, I was just looking at one of your kindness books. I got your Spot of Emotions books out in kindness. And we were going to talk about that today. In any event, what tends to happen, sure, when we start to touch into those things that are not so pleasant, that are not so sweet and wonderful, then the not so sweet and wonderful things become pretty intense. And the intensity of that is, how can I say, I guess not necessarily pleasant. And as you start to learn to open the veil, the internal dynamics that have remained hidden perhaps all your life, all of a sudden are in your face and not necessarily fun. However, the beauty of it is that when you start to move into, Aria just wanted something turned on, so on TV she wants to watch something on planets. In any event, when you start to access those deeper levels of mind, there's a tendency to want to run away from it. And people aren't running away from anything but themselves. And the objective of this work is to gently move in. One of the ideas of having this show going is that when somebody touches into something, it just seems to be too much to be handled, then, sweetie, I'm going to have to stay with the radio show, okay? So, okay. Okay. So when I start to move into those deeper places, the unpleasantness is kind of part of the process. There's a piece of writing from back in the, I'm just looking for it now, from back in the 1700s that just really describes what's going to happen when you start to tap into stronger and stronger spaces of love. Now, in his case, he writes it. This is a man who lived from 1651 to 1715. I'm not sure just what year he wrote this, but here's what he says. As the light increases, we see ourselves to be worse than we thought. We're amazed at our former blindness. As we see issuing forth from the depths of our heart a whole swarm of shameful feelings like filthy reptiles crawling from a hidden cave. We never could have believed we'd harbored such things, and we stand aghast as we watch them gradually appear. But while our faults diminish, so as you start doing that work, your faults diminish, the light by which we see them waxes brighter, and we're filled with horror. Bear in mind for your comfort that we'll only perceive our malady when the cure begins. So in essence, what he's saying is once you start to open the gates, it's going to get pretty intense. And what you're going to find in there is generational patterns of, if you look at the power person dynamics in your life, those power person dynamics have been developing in most family systems for generations and generations and generations. And when you recognize that, then there's that level of generational work to be done in order to clean it up. And we have the effective tools here for cleaning it up. It's just applying those tools and doing the work. And, one of the reasons for continuing this show, we're getting ready to head into our 12th year, is that when somebody comes across something, it's like, this is just too much to handle, we're here for support. We're here for guidance. We've been there. We've done that. Not that we're finished. We're in our process as much as anybody else is. And when I realize that, I have work to do. As I do my work, I enhance the work of anyone I touch, and vice versa. So it's a reciprocal type of thing where everybody benefits because we to do this work. And Arya just asked me to turn she's watching the Eat the Rainbow of foods by color and what nutrients are in them. So that's a big part of what happens. Carl Jung wrote that the demise of society wouldn't be from a physical threat, but instead from mass delusion. He called it a collective psychosis. Quote, Carl Jung, probably one of the greatest psychiatrists ever, he says, greater than all physical dangers are the tremendous effects of delusional ideas, which are yet denied all reality by our world-blinded consciousness. Our much vaunted reason and our boundlessly overestimated will are sometimes utterly powerless in the face of unreal thoughts. And so he goes on to say the wolf inside the man is far more a threat to human existence than external forces. So when mental forces become so toxic as to harm our overall well-being on an individual and collective level, a psychic epidemic can result. And he said that modern society was prone to collapse due to a pandemic, not of viruses, but of delusional ideas. And you look at, hand in hand with this whole pandemic on a viral level, have been these delusional ideas that have become such a threat. So many people talking about civil war and conflict and just mass insanity. And when you look at it, what we're talking about there is simply the unconscious mind of people starting to open, but opening it not in the context of healing, but opening it through hostility, fear, and conflict. And my offering is that is the prime cause of war. If people begin to open those dynamics within themselves and work through them, I forget who it was that said it, but the words were something to the effect of 80 years. Let me get to that quote exactly. Let me think how I can get it, make sure I get it at least close to accurate. In essence, what he was saying is every 80 years we tend to have a world war, and it's because when the young of a particular generation who has experienced war dies and the horror of war is forgotten, then the next war is set in motion. And my offering is the reason for that is because these unconscious dynamics, when they start to flood into the open, when there's such a resonance in the world for hostility and fear, they start to flood into the open, then the conflict that is going on within becomes projected without, and we end up doing the insanity that gets done. And of course, you add alcohol to that. You know, if you take a look, you know, the military is pretty famous for its abuse of alcohol. In fact, well, we don't even get into statistics, but it's crazy. And these are the people that decide when wars happen. And these are the people that spend the money that comes out of everybody's pocket to promote these wars. And they are all a result of these disturbances within the minds of individuals who do not have a constructive way to work through them, who do not have the tools, who do not have the support. And what we're here to do is to give the tools and give the support for that healing process. And so everything we do, you know, the app, all of it, each of the books, each of the DVDs, each of the CDs, the tapes, and the show is to get the people into the space. You know, if you've ever looked at a picture, I've actually been looking for one to do a post on Facebook, a picture where you look at it and you go, oh, I should know what that is. What is that? I can't quite see. And when I'm struggling to go, what is that? What's happening is that my carbon-based memory doesn't have the brain cells to accurately see, to what we call see, to generate a construct about whatever that is that we're seeing, that the picture of what's in front of us. The brain cells don't fire strong enough to go, and you'll notice that once the brain cells fire, then you can't unsee it. You look at it and it's just there. And the truth is, it's not there at all. It's in the brain of the mind, pardon me, of the perceiver. And so if we have a set of brain cells that easily brings us into a state of hostility and fear, then we've got a significant amount of work to do to remove that hostility or fear so we can back to building the brain cells for what it is to be human. And if you hold a newborn child, you know exactly what the nature of a human is. But we come into a world that specializes in knocking the truth of who we are as love out of us and teaching us that we're broken, that hostility and fear is the way of the world, and, you know, that's just the way it's going to happen. And the world isn't that way. It's the individuals in the world that make it that way. And so we're here to repair that. We're here to bring healing to that and to bring it out on such a mass scale that we change the whole dynamic of conflict and war in families, in communities, in, you know, cross-culturally, in countries, and getting us to realize that, in fact, you know, Einstein has a powerful saying. He says, if you think you're separate or separated from the rest of humanity, you're living in an optical delusion. A trick of the mind us into constructs of the mind called perception that is false, that show us that we are separate. You know, Einstein calls it an optical delusion. If we could raise the rate of vibration in which our eye sees, quote unquote sees, which our brain sees, we would see that we are all connected. We are not separate. There is no way we can separate from each other. But we can create divisions within our mind that make us appear to be separate. And then, of course, when one has some form of hostility or fear that they're unwilling to be responsible for, that they live in denial of, that they talk about everybody else when that hostility or fear comes up, then this whole game of there's somebody over there that I can harm without harming me becomes viable. And that's called war. And it's insane. I mean, it's insane on every level for many reasons, but at the very top level of truth, it's insane to think anybody's separate from you and that you can harm them without harming yourself. So it seems like on an energetic level, we're getting ready to take things to the next level of healing and wholeness on planet Earth with these tools, and the fact that they are, you know, expanding globally. You know, if you listen to the dynamics that Jeannie was just talking about, the different places that these things are happening, that this work is moving and expanding, it's pretty awesome that we live in this world of mass communication, and we have the opportunity to literally speak globally to people And as we speak globally to people, we invite everybody to act locally, to bring together these tools in their individual communities, in their individual family systems and worlds, and extended communities, and that together we can make a difference in how this game is played on planet Earth for humans. So that's kind of where we want to go and where we're heading. And Ms. Jeannie, do you have any other thoughts on that? Hello, Jeannie. How are you? Are you with me, Jeannie?
I am. She was just asking me to do something. So I actually have 3 of those pictures for you that you have to like stare at or turn a certain way or whatever to figure out what they are.
Right. Cool. Awesome. Thank you for searching for those.
We do have a hand up.
Cool. Let's say hello.
All right. Area code 828, you are in the air.
Hi there, this is Magda. Blessings.
Well, hey, young lady, welcome.
Thank you. I just have a moment because I'm out here doing my animal chores and stuff like that. And so I just wanted to interject something. I agree with everything you said earlier about doing the work can be very uncomfortable and not exactly fun a lot of times. And I want to reassure people, because it kind of might easily get lost, that the fear that those words might bring up, oh, I don't want to get uncomfortable, I don't want to go there. Disregard that, please, because the joy that follows going there is so immense and so wonderful. And the discomfort doesn't last forever. It's, it can be over in 20 minutes, or maybe it's an issue that it might take 2 days and a number of worksheets, but it is so worth it. So that's all I wanted to add.
Coming out is a good point. Coming out the other side, life is just beyond what could ever have been conceived previously. That's what I hear you saying, and I say that because that's how it is for me.
Absolutely. Yep. I like the way you put that. Yep. Okay, so that's it.
Awesome, young lady. Appreciate you.
I indeed appreciate you.
Have fun there on the farm.
Indeed, we always do. The chickens would like
blessings.
to speak with you, but okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Yeah, that's a really important point, that when you realize that if we were to, let's create a thing we're going to call emotional tone. If we were to create an emotional tone, and it goes from 1, which would be depressed and pained and traumatized, to 10, which would be just elated, delighted, joy, what would be called cosmic consciousness, full enlightenment, all of that. If we were to scale and someone were to rate themselves, and over the years I've asked this question of thousands of people and actually written it all out on the board, and the average pretty much across the board on that scale of 1 to 10, most people weigh in at about a 3 to a 4, which means you're carrying some pretty significant traumas. If we weren't carrying traumas, physiology connected to love would naturally be at a 10. That's where we're designed to live. But if you go back and you look, on that scale of 1 to 10, if you were to assess where was your mother on that scale, and where was your father? And if you were to assess where were each of your grandparents, where are your cousins, aunts, and uncles on that scale of 1 to 10? Well, we've done that, laid it out on the board. Some of you have been in the workshops where I've done that. And 3 to 4 is where most people come in. And that means that someone who lives at a 4, life is, for people at that level, is generally speaking quite a burden. It's difficult. And the people down at a 1 or a 2, the level of suicide in this country, the increase in suicides in the last few years has been outrageous. It's because people are like just too much pain. And if you don't have a set of tools with which to eradicate that pain, if all you can do is look out and try to, from that space of, let's say, a 4, try to control your world and make it better, trying to control your world out of an unconscious dynamic. If you remember Yeshua, he says, take care of the heart, for out of it are the issues in life. And he's saying, take care of the unconscious. We could easily hear him saying, take care where you are on the scale of 1 to 10, because out of that is how you create your life. And so when you go in and you start facing and removing, remember again that forgiveness is about removal. When you go in and start removing the level 1, the level 2, the level 3, the level 4 painful experiences, then everything, your whole emotional tone, your whole emotional scale moves upward. So if you're at a 4, yes, you might dip down into a 2 or a 1 or a -5 or a -10. You might dip into that and touch into that. And as you work through it, then instead of living on a day-to-day basis at a 4, you end up at a 5 or a 6 or a 7. And as you do your work continuously, if you ask anybody who's been doing this work over some period of time, and you've heard me, go into that on the show, somebody calls in and, gee, I've been doing this work for 10 years and, my life is going well, and now I'm in a major healing crisis. And then they describe what their healing crisis is about, and oftentimes it's, well, this is something that happened, that I was working on 10 years ago. And they'll, kind of refer to it and talk about it, maybe add a joke into it. And you've heard me do this many times over the years, and I'll point out. So remember, back 10 years ago when you were talking about that, you were in such trauma and such tears, you couldn't have gotten a smile on your face for love nor money when we were processing it, when you were in that intensive or, that workshop and we were talking about it. And here you are now 10 years later. Yes, you're back visiting that. You're doing a new layer of that. But notice that as you do it, you can bring a joke into it, and you can smile about it, and you can be in a space of connectedness around it. That's the benefit of doing your work. You just on an ongoing basis move up that tone scale so that you live higher and higher on that scale in your normal day. And then as you hit new levels of vitality, yes, you dip back into deeper layers of that need to be cleaned up. But if you look at the overall trajectory, if you're doing your work, it's an uphill battle. Most people are moving downward, deeper and deeper into those traumas if they don't have the tools, because they tend to attract and resonate with other people who don't have the tools and tend to create experiences out of trauma rarely touched by healing, where as you really integrate and you become accustomed to using these tools, and it becomes habit to use these tools, then those situations that previously would have led to deeper levels of trauma lead to, there's some trauma there. Yep, this isn't pleasant. This isn't Dr. Feelgood, but I just peeled off a few layers because I knew that what I needed to do was connect to love. I knew what I needed to do was communicate responsibly. I knew what I needed to do was to do a worksheet. I knew that I needed to do some responsibility communication. I knew that I needed to go back and do that codependence work. Yes, I knew that I needed to do some still point breathing around that one. And so the movement tends to be continuously upward rather than continuously downward. And that's the objective of what we're doing here. So we're honored and delighted to be in this conversation with you, and just having the opportunity to bring the tools forward one more time on one more level. And if the tools are impacting you and making a difference in your life, then we invite you to consider some way of supporting us, some way of bringing this work further into the world, referring it, passing it on to others, perhaps taking on a project. If we do this workshop, we're not planning to open Heartland for our purposes this summer. It just doesn't feel appropriate with COVID. However, this group of folks that is looking to rent Heartland or to come out to the space and do a signer workshop are people who know each other, so they're feeling comfortable with that. And probably I'll go out a week or two earlier to get the facility open and operating. And so I'll probably do a work week where we'll do some forgiveness work and maybe some still point breathing and such. So if you're interested in doing a visit, maybe put that on your calendar. It'll probably be late July, mid to late July, if that all comes together. Again, the conversation just started this morning, so I told them that I was about 80% yes, but I haven't even talked to Jeannie yet to see what her thoughts are. And of course, we have Dad and the baby here in Virginia, so we'll see how it all comes together. But mark your calendar as a possibility if you want to come out and maybe help to get the facility together and do a little bit of work together and some inner work as well. So we'll probably do a work week kind of thing and see how it all unfolds. So, Miss Jeannie, any other thoughts for you? We're down to about 25 minutes.
No, Aria was looking. She goes, oh, there's 2 hands up. But the other one was Celinda's. She talked to Dr. Tim in the first hour, so she's getting the hang of what the switchboard looks like here with phone numbers popping up.
So. Cool. Well, who knows? She might be a future host to displace Michelle. They're in listener land. And especially if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you on our switchboard. You know, Jeannie has a switchboard, and that's what Ari is looking at, so she can see when somebody's hand is up. But if you're on one of those stations where we can't see you, we don't know you're there, we have no way of communicating with you or having a conversation with you. So if you are and you'd like to have a conversation, then if you just dial into the show on your phone, and the dial-in number is 563-999-3581. 563-999-3581. If you dial in, you'll be listening to the show live, and then if you have a question or a thought for us, then push 1, and we'll be having a conversation. So, how can we support you? What's on your mind? If you're out there in listening land, push 1. Let's talk about it.
We have a whole switchboard full of people, so somebody press 1. You're bound to have a question or a comment starting out this new year. Let us know what's going on.
Well, I'm going to go on and touch into a little more of that topic from Carl Jung. So, again, he says, the wolf inside man was far more a threat to human existence than external forces. He says, when mental forces become so toxic as to harm our overall well-being on an individual and collective level, a psychic epidemic can result. He warned that modern society was prone to collapsing due to a pandemic of delusional ideas. He says, the man who is unconscious of the historical context and lets slip his link with the past is in a constant danger of succumbing to the crazes and delusions engendered by all novelties. In other words, something new comes along. Let's go get excited about that. And then Jung talks about the fact that man is, quote unquote, a religious being. And of course, we're distinguishing religion from churchianity. Churchianity is not necessarily about religion. It can be, but it's not necessarily. So unless man has a set of principles by which to live, then people make it up. And a psychologist that did Jung's work said, you can't not have a central myth to live by. He says that Jung would perhaps say that at this time we've lost that. We don't have a collective unifying principle. Jung believed that people needed myths to live by, hence the importance of religion. Religion gave people a myth or a story which they could unify and connect around. And when we become unified and connected, we become community. Those who don't have a unifying point are, stand up for themselves. And, we see an ever increasing number of, Americans who are dissociating from any kind of spiritual ties. And many people who, are not connected in that way end up in circles that go with any kind of crazy thing that somebody else has made up. You look at this QAnon stuff that's going on, and if somebody's hurting, Jung says if an individual's hurting financially or at any level, losing a job, having trouble with their mortgage, having trouble feeding themselves, having trouble in relationships, they're more likely to listen to extremist ideologies and talk about conspiracies that talk about how something's beyond their control. So ultimately, another psychologist named Kelly says, it means that you have to integrate your own darkness, wrestle with your own paradoxes, and stop projecting out onto other people the opposite inside of what's inside of you. And so it becomes literally a thing that brings cultures to sanity when they're breaking down, as we're watching them do, into so much insanity as we see today. So the objective of this work is to bring correction, to bring unification, to bring people together in a connected way around a common understanding that we are creatures based in love, here to be the expression of love. That's essentially why we're here. To solidify, when we've asked you before to hold a newborn child and tap into the essence of the newborn, being into is what we would call the spiritual body, love, the energy, the essence that we're made of. And if you look into our purpose work, it was a workshop we do called Purpose, Personal Power, and Commitment, we point out that the primary purpose of every human being is identical. It's exactly the same. And that's to develop or to strengthen this spiritual body, this awareness of self as love, the truth of who we are. That's the primary purpose. Then the secondary purpose comes along. It's what we do in the world to fulfill that primary purpose. And what we do in the world has to be aligned with our primary purpose. Elsewise, we're going to create chaos in our lives. So someone who acknowledges, yes, I'm here for love, but goes out and rips people off for fortunes in an investment scam is a house divided against themselves. And Yeshua pointed out 2,000 years ago that a house divided against themselves simply can't stand. It's just not possible. And when we wake up to who we are, doing the work where each individual, instead of projecting unresolved generational patterns out into, not out, but into the pictures their minds generate, and then pretending those pictures are actually sights of what's outside of them, to recognize that constructs of the mind, perceptions, are constructs that reflect internal content, and they never are outside of us. They can't go outside of us. They are internal. But our mind can dissociate from them in such a way that we think, oh, I'm seeing that with my eyes, and therefore I'm seeing something that's outside of me. And the impossibility of seeing something with one's eyes is something that rarely occurs to people. The eye being a one-way valve, you cannot see out through the eye. Information, energy, light energy specifically, comes into the eye. And that light energy carries information. It carries frequencies, and according to the frequencies carried into the eye, when those frequencies interact or resonate what's in carbon-based memory, what's in the memory bank, out of the memory bank come the constructs, the pictures that we see. So the world we think we see through our eyes is a construct of our mind based in part, yes, on light energy coming in, but to a greater degree based upon what that light energy resonates in us. Or when we hear a sound, what does that sound resonate in us? Our listening happens in the brain. It doesn't happen in our ears. Our seeing doesn't happen through our eyes. It happens in our brain. And when we recognize that our seeing is a product of our own brain, and that there's an indicator that when our brain or our mind is off base, the mind being a product of the brain primarily, although it's a product of every cell in the structure, when we realize that it's a product of what's moving inside of us, then it behooves us to recognize that that construct has a quality, and if it's a poor quality, our lives are going to be garbage as a result of it, if we buy it, if we live as though that's true. And if we upgrade the quality, and the whole idea of forgiveness is to upgrade the quality of the perceptual output of your mind, then life tends to improve proportionate to the upgrade that you do. So moving literally from out of the capacity to produce hostility and fear. Now, many people say, well, but Michael, the world makes me angry. The world makes me afraid. That's just such a crock of crap. Nobody has ever made you angry. Nobody has ever made you afraid. But if there's anger and fear in you, certainly a whole procession of people has shown up in your life, continues to show up in your life, and will continue to show up in your life to bring that up in you, because you live in a world of resonance and you literally are a gravitational field that draws that to you. When you take responsibility for the quality of your perceptual mind and you begin to remove the corrupt data, the hostility and fear-based data that goes into your perceptual constructs, then your mind more and more becomes aligned with the active presence of love, and more supports you living as the active presence of love, and becomes the gravitational field which draws to you experiences in your world. Now, there's a cute story about the man who's on the road traveling, and he stops in this little town. There's a house outside of town, and there's an old man sitting on the deck of the house. And he says, "Hey, mister, I'm just passing through, and I'm looking for a place where I'm going to spend the night, and I'm just wondering what this town is like. What are people like here?" The old man says, "Well, what were they like in the last town you're in?" He said, "Oh, they were pretty cool. They were sweet, supportive, nice people, had good interactions. Spent a few days there. It was really a good time." And the old man says, "Well, yeah, that's what it's like here." And so the guy goes off and spends the night in town, and another young man comes along with the same question. "Hey, old man, what are people like in this town?" The old man says, "Well, what were they like in the last town you were in?" He says, "Oh, nasty, cheats and thieves. They were vicious. They were brutal. It's just brutal." He said, "Well, that's what they're like here." We can find whatever we choose to be wherever we choose to go. And we will find whatever decisions are made by our minds will run the resonance of our lives. And decisions are always things that come from the past. Carbon-based memory, called body's mind, is nothing but a decision-making device. If I say, don't think about the color of your car, what does your mind do? The average person says, well, it thinks about the color of my car. And my offering is, it's not thinking. All it is, I asked the question, the color of your car, and whatever the content is in brain cells resonated. That's anything but thinking. It's just resonance. And if most people run their lives by associative consciousness, it's just resonance. This comes along and that resonates, and then this resonates, and that pop, 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 and we become a gravitational field for whatever's popping in us. If I don't like what's popping in me and I apply forgiveness, I get to remove it. Yes, I have to face it, not Dr. Feelgood. But if I face it and choose, not decide, decide comes from the word to cut off, suicide, fratricide, maternicide. It comes from the killing off of something. Choice is where you want to live. What do you introduce? Do you introduce the highest level of thought into your mind on a daily basis, the highest level available to you? Or do you go with whatever has been going on for generations and generations and generations? In the ancient scriptures, they said, look to the lives of the fathers, for ours are but a shadow of theirs upon the earth. But your life doesn't have to be a shadow. You don't have to live at whatever level on that tone scale we're talking about your family system lived. You don't have to live there. Now, there are going to be members of your family who aren't very happy that you're not living there, and there are going to be other members of your family that are overjoyed because by doing so you give them a lift. But you've got to move out of decision-making, the automatic process. Don't think about the color of your car, what's the front door of your house look like, what's your favorite item of clothing. All that's just resonance in the mind, to where I exercise the spiritual muscle of introducing something new that comes from and through the presence of love in me. I bring that into my mind. I bring that into my physiology, and I do it on such a consistent basis that it becomes my habit. And then I get to live there. It's a powerful place to live. And, Francois Fenelon, that quote I wrote earlier, definitely said a little bit about what needs to be faced, but, oh man, what a difference it makes when we wake up and step out of those habits. So again, if you're out there in listener land, what's on your mind? Push one. Let's have a conversation about it. Call-in numbers 563-999-3581. And here's I'm not sure who wrote this, but the question is, who am I? I'm your constant companion. I'm your greatest helper or your heaviest burden. I will push you onward or drag you down to failure. I'm completely at your command. Half of the things you do might as well be turned over to me, and I will do them quickly and correctly. I'm easily managed, but you must be firm with me. Show me exactly how you want something done, and after a few lessons, I will do it automatically. I am the servant of great people, and alas, of all failures as well. Those who are great, I have made great. Those who are failures, I have made failures. I'm not a machine, though I work with the precision of a machine, plus the intelligence of a person. You may run me for profit or run me for ruin. It makes no difference to me. Take me, train me, be firm with me, and I will place the world at your feet. Be easy with me, and I will destroy you. Who am I? I am habit. That was written by John Delusional, Lemme. John Dilemme. Who am I? I am called habit. Powerful to recognize. And our habits tend to run, again, in family systems. So if there's work to be done, how cool is that? Pick it up, put it to work, and things rock and roll. So if you're out there in listener land, we've got, about 7 minutes left, and I'm complete with my monologue. So if you're out there and you have a thought for us, push one. Let's talk about it. 563-999-3581.
We have a hand up.
Awesome. Let's say hello.
541. It's Miss Celinda.
Yes, it is. How are you
Welcome,
today?
young lady.
I really like that quote. I hope all of these quotes you've done today will end up, of course, with their links. Thank you, Jeannie, for doing that for us. I really like this last quote about habit. And I realized that I have a habit that I never realized before until I did a worksheet the other day.
Right.
And that habit is that when I lose somebody special, I will tend to keep a relationship with a friend that was involved, who was involved in any way with that relationship. My daughter, for example, because she was my only connection to my first husband. I never realized before, but actually it wasn't, the friendship had mixed motives to it. Yes, I loved the other person, or, I cherished the other person, or I really liked them, but I didn't realize there was this undergoing agenda that somehow I was linking them as the bridge to someone who had passed on.
Uh-huh. Interesting.
And or that I'd had a very strong interest in or relationship with in my past. And I've noticed how in those relationships that what has ensued And I'm not totally clear of how I contributed to it in some situations, and am in the others, that they would end up breaking the relationship. And so that's just a new insight I'm having that I'm reflecting on. And we'll probably do a worksheet on it soon. But I wanted to share that.
Maybe a few.
Pardon? Maybe a few.
I say that, yeah, there might be a few worksheets in that regard. It sounds like a pretty steep dynamic that has probably influenced many areas of your life. So that'll be good stuff to bring to the conscious level and really,
yes,
thoroughly check out.
Yeah, because I'm just having a realization right now, and that is that if I can catch it for you, that it sounds like unfinished business with the primary relationship of the person who's passed on in some way or another.
Right.
And so, yeah, I think there will be a few words.
Breathing with you.
That unravel that one. I am breathing.
Yeah, breathing with you. Yeah, good.
Oh, thanks.
Sweet.
So I just wanted to share that with you in case you had some insights or had some thoughts or reflections or similarities, anything like that, or anybody else out in listener land. Oh,
well, go ahead.
Oh, okay. One other thought, too, is, biologically, in our animal nature, we are communal characters. We are communal citizens. We belong, we function in community. We're social creatures. So what you were reflecting on, the chaos of today, the insanity of the day, the isolating processes that are going on today within ourselves, let alone what we do with each other by isolating them, and I'm thinking of abuse patterns now. What other conclusion is there if we don't come to terms with that on a conscious level? Yeah. And so I agree with Carl Jung and his assessment or observation about the human dilemma. Yes, right. Thank you for all of those.
Sweet. Well, delighted to be part of your process and to be of support with you. Thank you, by the way, for that package for Aria and the note and the check with support donation in it. Much appreciated. And the donations that come in at this point are pointed directly to, you'll know exactly where it's going because they're pointed to putting a new roof on a building at Heartland that's called Eternal Support. So many who listen to the show have stayed in that building when they've come and been on the support team at Heartland, and we're getting ready to put a new metal roof on that building. So thank you for that support. That's what it'll help pay for. So you'll own a piece of the roof on Eternal Support at Heartland.
Well, it sounds like a very worthy cause.
We're rocking on.
And I am complete. Thank you, sir.
All right, young lady. We appreciate you. Lots of love and blessings. Well, we're down to the last few seconds, so Miss Jeannie, I'm just going to say thank you, everybody, for joining us. And Aria Rain, we cherish you. Everybody, have the best year yet of your eternal life. It's an awesome